to the newest episode of Borderline Podcast Disorder by Levi Lupu. It's me, Levi Lupu. What's up? And yeah, I hope you have a good week. You have had a good week, and I hope you're looking forward to this week, whether you're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah or not celebrating something else or nothing at all. I just hope you're doing good. That's important, right? That's pretty important. And I hope you're looking after yourself. Drinking water and not too much water because that's also damaging. It has side effects. You have to drink the right amount of water. Now, how's things? You know, I know you can't reply to this because it's a monologue. That I'm doing. Things with me are okay. I have some very exciting news because I've finally got to see a physiotherapist last just at the end of the week, and if you're listening to this on Monday, I'm seeing the physiotherapist again, and it's amazing. I they found there was a problem with like the middle of my back, not the lower back, not the higher part of the back, but the middle of the back. A lot of stress was kept there, so I had the acupuncture for the first time. Yeah, I had someone stick those needles on my back, and you know what, it was good. It feels a bit again, I didn't feel any pain or anything like that at the time. It feels a bit sore, now the day after, and at, in the evening after I got home from the physio. But I woke up feeling great, and I not only that I woke up feeling great, I was so energetic yesterday, and I'm energetic today, and it's a very good change of pace. I've honestly don't remember the last time I felt like this, and this is very very welcome. I welcome this feeling. I find it quite weird because I feel like I'm almost like a puppy, and although I feel because I'm still under the observation of the said physio, I'm not trying to do too much, but I wish I could, and I have some like energy outbursts, and I move around a lot. I started walking more. I started doing all these things that I really struggled with for a very long time. And what was the other thing that I was going to mention? Hmm. Yeah, I today, which is a Friday when I'm recording this for the release on Monday. It's the first day after about 3 4 weeks when I didn't take any painkillers in the morning because nothing hurt. So it's good, and I'm very happy. And again, long it may last. Besides of that, doing a lot of work I've been doing a lot of work with my therapist, trying to get through all these, you know, what's the word? Trying to get all these thoughts and the stress that I've been struggling with, to put it in order and to get to accept the situation that I'm in, and to you know be able to look forward to next year and to what we want to do, or like what I want to do, what my plans are, as an individual in comedy, but also in personal life, because I'm yeah, me and my partner are thinking about some big changes, in the new year. So I've been thinking about that a lot, and I've been talking about it a lot in therapy, and it's looking good. And I feel like in the last couple of weeks, I've done well, given the circumstances, I feel like I've managed everything that's happened around me pretty well. Even the back pain in the last couple of weeks, although I have for anyone who's listening for the first time, but then it's something new. But then for anyone who's listened to this or like knows me, knows that I'm very much use whatever you can to make you feel better. So I'm a medication, a pro medication kind of guy, where medication is needed or it can help. But I'm not comfortable with painkillers. I think I mentioned last week about how it's all about why, or like how they impacted my mom's illness and then her death. And because of that, I feel very although again I didn't take painkillers nowhere near as strong as the ones that she was on. um, I'm still very scared and very reluctant of painkillers. I don't feel comfortable taking them. I get a bit paranoid as well. And but I accepted it. I accepted everything that's happened. I In the past, when my back used to hurt in ways such as it did recently, I used to be very, what's the word, I used to want to self punish almost. I would like say, if I were on a run and I'd feel pain, I'd want to run harder and longer and almost punish myself for the fact that I allow myself to feel this sort of pain. And not this time. This time it went differently. And oh yes, this is what I wanted to say earlier. One of the I feel like the good news for me was the fact that again, my weight has been fluctuating a lot. And I feel like, since although I stopped being on sertraline over a year ago, I still struggle. And that although there is no evidence that fluoxetine, which is the SSRI that I'm on at the moment, has any impact in regards to weight gain. Unfortunately, I still struggle with losing weight regardless of how good my diet is or how much movement I do slash make. But yeah, the kind of interesting news and the good news that I found yesterday from my physiotherapist was that the pain that I have in the middle back has nothing to do with or it has very little to do, is insignificant amount to do with weight balance. So I basically, the reason why I say this was a good thing for me is because for a very long time I used to beat myself up for not being able to manage my weight better. Although again, I tried all these things and nothing's ever worked. While now, to have a professional tell us that, or tell me that actually the stress and everything that's happened to the middle of my back, actually it's not induced by the weight gain or the weight loss. It felt good. It felt really good. And it felt like it gave me some reassurance that I have indeed, tried and did my best. And there were still some things that I can't control. And you look now, I've found a way to control it, I guess. Or like, again, I managed to, after I've done exercises for my back and everything for ages, now I've managed to actually see a professional in person who's been able to offer me a cure or some sort, or at least, some hope, some well needed hope. And that's good, that's nice, and I'm very happy and I'm very grateful about it. And I feel like that's a nice way to start the Hanukkah and Christmas season. And even for anyone who's kind of low key celebrating, just to wrap up 2024, which has been sometimes very beautiful, sometimes very difficult year. So, on that note, I feel like it's a good way to tell you just a little bit about my guest for this week. Someone I'm very excited to have spoken to, and I'm very excited for you to listen to the conversation. Dee Allum is a fantastic comedian, and I've watched her work in progress a couple of weeks ago now, I want to say, in North London. And it was great. It was, I really I enjoyed it, and I felt it's such a feel good sort of comedy show, and the interview was amazing. We got to chat. I got to ask her some questions about things I had no idea about, and she got to share her. Uh, I want to say great story, and I hope you find it at least as great as I did, although the bar is pretty high because I was at many times during our conversation left without words or very surprised by yeah by the things that she was saying, because again it was so interesting. So I hope you enjoy that, and I hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll catch up with you before we wrap it up. But here is Dee Allum and I for you. Okay, so Dee, how's it going?
It's going well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. How was it? Was it good, like a good journey, or
It was a lovely journey.
you travel from far?
From Greenwich. So I got on the DLR.
Oh, very nice.
Pretty good. I didn't get to sit at the front, unfortunately, and pretend like I was driving, which is my favorite thing to do. Yeah, it was a pretty chill journey. It's it's a Sunday morning, so it was quite relaxed. It was quite empty.
That's
it was
good.
nice.
The thing is with the are you like from, or like have you been living in Greenwich for a long time?
I have, yeah, for sort of 3-4 years.
3-4 years. But then are you from London originally?
I'm from just outside London, so I've always been sort of nearby, but not like central.
Interesting. And then, because my only curiosity was that I got so freaked out the first time I went on the DLR.
Yeah.
The notion of like not having a driver.
I remember the first time I went on the DLR, I was maybe 12, and I found it, I was just like the best day of my life.
No way.
When you're 12,
Yeah.
that is the coolest thing you can imagine.
That
Getting on like a
scared me.
driverless train. It's amazing. The future is now.
Yeah, but I was so like it terrified me. I was like, how is this not like manhandle? Like, why is there no anyone to drive it? And then, well, because is someone with the key, no?
Well, yeah, there's always like someone on the
Yeah.
train. Their job seems to be to just like stand at one of the doors and look out every time they get to a station. But that's literally it. It's like I don't know I don't know if they're not physically driving it, because like they have
Yeah.
controls at the front, right? That they sometimes,
Is it like an emergency thing?
but like I've seen them sometimes just driving it normally.
Oh.
I think, but most of the time they just don't touch it because they just go them by themselves. I don't understand. I think it's magic as far as I'm concerned. It may as
Fair.
well be.
And it sounds like
Harry Potter.
it made a 12-year-old very happy.
It made a 12-year-old absolutely thrilled. I think it does every day. Every day there's a new 12-year-old that gets on the DLR for the first time. It's really a magical part of London. You must check it out if you haven't already.
I do sometimes. I think when I do like gigs in like Southeast London, I have I'd go on from Stratford, and it's an experience. And I also like the fact that it's a bit like it's almost like an overground sort of, it's outside. So
Yeah. Well, you
feel
can see all the
cool
buildings
go
and stuff.
fast.
Going through Canary Wharf on the DLR, I think, is genuinely a really fun London activity.
Yeah.
Like going through like all these skyscrapers on either side. It feels like you're in like Chicago or something. I think it's really cool. I'm a big fan.
That's good. Yeah, because I agree. I feel, although the fact that now we're going super technical, although most people who listen to the podcast are not from London.
Oh, are they not? Okay.
No, actually,
in which case you're not. This is terrible content.
No, hopefully, if they were to come to London, they can put it on their bucket list.
Sure, but like they won't be able to relate right now.
No, but maybe it's better because they can imagine how great it is.
Yeah. Is that better? I don't feel like that's better.
And like sets the expectations as high as it deserves to be.
Yeah. Well,
super high, by the way.
Listen. Yeah, the point is it's great.
It's great.
It's great. It's the best.
But so you were saying because you're from just outside of London.
Yeah, I'm from sort of near Watford. Don't know how. If you're not from London, I feel like Watford is going to be
because
maybe a football team,
but
very little else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a little sort of suburb, kind of like a bit leafy. I'm from a village, sort of near there. But yeah, so sort of just outskirts of London.
And that's like North London, no?
North, yeah.
Yeah.
North west.
And then when did you like decide to move? I guess central.
I think it was just sort of always the plan. Like I grew up there, and then I went to uni, uh, and then I finished that, and then I moved to Croydon because like when you finish uni in the UK, you move to London or you move to a big city. So many people move to London. Most people, I would say, just move to Clapham or whatever. Because it's just the thing that you do. You know, like okay, now you're an adult, now you're starting your life, and you do that in London. And then over the course of your career, you'll work your way slowly further outside of London because you can afford to. You know, when you start, you have to live somewhere horrible like Kilburn or something, where like no one really wants to live, and then slowly you kind of work your way up until you no longer have to live in London. That's what life's all about.
No way.
That's the whole game. Just how far outside of London can you make it by the time you die?
I can't tell whether you're like serious about it or
Well, I think it's at least a little bit true. Like it's because
Yeah.
like no one wants to live their whole life in Leytonstone,
that's
do
true.
they? Like
Yeah.
no one,
Hey, why are you not joking?
you would like to at some point move to a nicer part of the central
Yeah.
line, I imagine.
Well, we are already considering moving. Actually, we are considering moving even further out.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah, so I agree. Yeah.
That's the whole point of life.
Wow. And then what did you study at uni? What did you do?
I studied politics.
No way.
Yeah.
And what?
It's going really well. As someone who's an expert in it, I can confirm all of politics is going really well right now. It's going super well.
Nice. That's good to know. I think it's been a by for everyone for context, it's we're recording at the beginning of November. So yeah, things look like they're blossoming.
So rosy. I'm so excited about what the future holds.
How did you get it? Like, what made you want to do politics? So, like, so again, actually, let's answer this, and then we're going into when did comedy become a part of like what you wanted to do?
So politics was, I was like 16. I was deciding. So in the UK, just for context, you pick. People take like 10 GCSEs when you're 16. Some of those are like standard ones that everyone has to do, like English and maths and stuff, and some that you also choose. And then when you turn 17, 18, then you narrow those 10 down to like 4 or 5. So that's when people decide if they want to do like, maths and science and become a doctor and that kind of thing, or if they want to obviously, do something else. And I wasn't going to take politics. And then I spoke to the politics teacher and he said, I think you'd be good at it. So I took it because I like people praising me for things, particularly when I haven't even done anything. He just said, I think you might be able to do this later. So I decided to take it and I really, really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it more than the other things that I was studying at the time. So I was like, I'll just do this at university. And it was good. I was a fan.
Okay. Nice. And what? Because is it like what's the word? Oh my god, philosophy? No.
Well, that is also that's sort of nearly part of it. So like I went to Cambridge. So my degree was called Human Social. I know it's pretty
nice.
good.
Yeah.
And now we're both here, so it didn't,
No, still, I'm graduating. Like I'm doing. I did like I'm a carpenter, by the way.
Oh, really?
By trade. So I think it's
That's much more useful than
No, I
a
don't.
Cambridge degree. 100%.
It still though. It sounds cooler. I think when I say carpenter, nobody goes like, "What?"
I think that's cool. It's retro.
Yeah, Jesus did it.
Jesus did do it.
Yeah.
And if Jesus did it,
No, everyone can do it.
there you go.
Also, please continue.
Yeah, so I did. It was human, social, political sciences. So it was some politics, some like anthropology. You also have the option of taking like archaeology and stuff. But like the most famous politics course in the UK is at Oxford. They do PPE, which is philosophy, politics, and economics. So we did we had some things in common, but not lots. So like we didn't do a lot of philosophy. We did quite a lot of political philosophy. Don't know how interesting or engaging this is, but we did a lot of we did some Rousseau, we did some Kant, did some Nietzsche, all these fun people who've written books.
I can't speak with for the people who are not present and listening to this, but I am for one. I love it. I love this.
You look genuinely amazed.
Yeah, because it sounds amazing.
It was good. I had a good time. I was quite good at it, but now I don't use any of it at all.
No
I
way.
think like most people in most of their degrees.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say that? I think the I guess it does in to a respect, go into your comedy. And I was going to say that I think when I first met you, when we first met, I was just your like stand up was just brilliant, and I
Thank
really
you.
well again talking. I'm not what do you call it? I feel like I don't want to sound like patronizing anyway, but it was like to me it was wow, it was just fantastic, and I actually think that now it almost like makes a lot of sense by the fact that it was just also like very like well like clever and well put, and I guess it's somehow no part of that. So I would have said anyway. I think my point was that I imagine that they are intertwined to an extent, the politics and stand up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think to some extent, it's kind of any like. I think like obviously there's a sort of thing about people from Cambridge or posh universities then going into the arts and sort of like dominating, and obviously part of that is because like you meet people at university and then you kind of like stay friends, and it's all a bit kind of like nepotism basically, and that's definitely part of it. But also I think like just spending 3 years having to like work quite hard to like you just have to produce so much work. You have to think about things. You have to think about so many things. Like when you're writing an essay, like it takes a lot to do that to a good stand. And I think that stands people in good stead, particularly for stand up, where it's all about like obviously like having like the interesting thought first of all is probably the most important bit, but then also like being able to look at it in different ways and understand different perspectives to kind of get the most out of that material. I think is really important. So I think I can see why it would be a helpful skill to have, um, to then help with the stand up. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know. It's I think stand up. But to the sort of second part of your question, um, is something that I kind of fell into, but also in hindsight feels like the only place that I could ever have ended up. Because like I've always been like I was always like the funny kid because I didn't really know how else to relate to people. Um, like I loved to read a lot when I was a kid, and I was like academically I was doing pretty well. So like I always knew how to do those things, but I never really I wasn't great at relating to other human beings outside of trying to make them laugh. Like that's like the thing that
Okay.
it was always kind of what I defaulted to as a kid. Uh, so in hindsight, it's like, well, obviously you're going to end up as a comedian. Like that's the most obvious thing for you to possibly end up doing. uh, but it took a while to kind of get there. Like obviously there's school and there's university and there's like I did quite a lot of sketch comedy for a while.
No way. Oh,
Uh,
to what extent?
like I was sort of so the Footlights, the Cambridge Footlights are like a sort of relatively famous sort of comedy institution in the UK.
Okay.
Uh, so like it started with like what's it called? Uh, it was like Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, and then like Monty Python.
No way.
Yeah, and then like Fry and Laurie. Do you know Fry and Laurie? Stephen Fry.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Laurie.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And then it's just like a pretty significant kind of comedy pedigree.
yeah.
And that's a lot of sketch. They have like a pantomime every year where it's very silly. So I did that for quite a bit of my time at uni, which I really enjoyed. And because people were doing that, and then also kind of dabbling in stand up, like there was also a stand up scene at university. It wasn't very kind of, it wasn't very well constructed. Like it wasn't like sort of the focus of the comedy world.
Right.
But people kind of dabbled. So I did my first stand up set in 2017, I was not very good, but I didn't really mind because didn't feel like it didn't feel like the kind of comedy that I was uh, kind of most interested in. And then
What changed?
well, I think I left university and realized that sketch comedy is really cringe. It's so cringy, and and just sort of on a pure economic level, people do not want to pay to come and watch sketch comedy for the most part. Like unless it's really good, uh, there is not the demand for it in the way that there is for stand up.
Interesting.
So part of it was just like this is the only kind of comedy that you're sort of allowed to do, or like that there is kind of room for. But also, I think I, well, it's a complicated question, but I came out as transgender over the pandemic in like 2021.
I thought it was again. Sorry, because I thought it was before.
I'll take that as a compliment. I'll take that as a big compliment.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. So I came out, and then I think for quite a while, up until that point, I hadn't really known how to kind of be myself on stage. So I think I found it easier to play characters. And then when I came out, I think most people, when they come out, they feel very vulnerable, and they feel like, it's like an exposed wound almost, or like when you scratch off a layer of skin and you're left with something quite raw underneath, and people don't want to expose that to the world straight away. People are like, okay, well, I'm going to need time to go away and really, make myself the person that I want to be, and then I'll feel comfortable sort of going outside. Whereas I felt quite early on, as in within like a month of coming out, I was like, I'm going to do stand up about this.
No way.
Because it's really funny. Like it just felt like the funniest things were happening to me all the time. And it was almost too good to not make into comedy. And I didn't feel like I could make it into anything other than stand up. Like if that's just like felt like the natural kind of progression. Like when there are funny stories of things that happen to you in your real life, you get on stage and you tell people about.
Yeah.
It felt kind of obvious. So I did. Like, I think I did my first gig after coming out, after maybe like 3 weeks. And it went really well. And then, so that was 3.5 years ago, and I've just sort of continued to do it ever since.
And then I have so many questions because it sounds, so incredible. Because again, like, and I'm sorry because it was like my assumption that you've like come out a longer time ago.
No, that's a big. I promise you, that's a big compliment.
Oh,
if you had said, "Oh, I thought you came out last week," like that would be bad.
But the one thing that was like really. So the first thing that came to mind is that in 2017 you were doing stand up. But then the characters that you were talking about, were you like in any way talking about your struggle with identity, or no, it was like totally different?
No, yeah, it was. I mean, also sketch comedy is like such a kind of collaborative thing. Like it wasn't just me on stage.
No, but I meant about the stand up. Like when you
right
in the times when you were doing stand up.
No, not at all.
No way.
I mean, I didn't really. I mean, we're getting personal now, but like I didn't really know at the time what was like. I didn't even know there was a struggle ongoing.
Interesting.
In hindsight, there absolutely was, but like I just didn't consider it. I think I just thought like, oh yeah, and I've got that thing going on in the background. That'll work itself out. And I genuinely didn't think about it. And people don't really believe me when I say that because, like, the gender that you are to most people, to basically everyone, is so fundamental and obvious that if there were any doubt thrown in, like it's just like the basis of who you are, right? Like you would think about it, but like because it had always been there, I'd never felt comfortable, which meant that in a weird way I was comfortable because I just thought that's how I was. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I was like, well, yeah, I don't really like myself, and I probably would rather be something else. But I just won't think, well, this is how I am. So Let's just talk about other things.
That makes so much sense.
I didn't
Yeah.
consider it an issue or something that I needed to resolve because it was just the way things were.
And yeah, that makes so much sense because now when you say it about like how you look at things that again like something when it's uncomfortable for a very long time, and I can only I mean I can think of like I don't know when you have like and I know this is way of but like if you say you sit in like an uncomfortable seat, right, and then you sit there for so long that you're just like that's just like you make the adjustments and that you just move on, or like
Absolutely.
you almost learn to live with it. And yeah, that's so it's mind blowing, and it sounds. And again, like once you said it, it's like yeah, it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
That's what like I feel like. Oh yeah, again to an extent.
It's
Um,
almost like a philosophy experiment. It's like
yeah,
it's because like when we sit down in an uncomfortable seat, immediately we're like, oh, this is an uncomfortable seat. Maybe eventually you get used to it, but like immediately that it's an uncomfortable seat.
it's yeah,
And the question is like, well, if you were born into an uncomfortable seat, would you know that you're in an uncomfortable seat, or if you just think you're in a seat? You know, there's a comedian, another trans comedian in America called Sonny Laprade, who has a really good joke about that I can't remember every beat of, so I can't replicate it. Uh, but it's about what it's like to be like trying to explain what it feels like to someone who's not trans. And she says it's like being born with a rock in your shoe, and people are like, and you think to yourself, there's a rock in my shoe, but then you also say, well, I'm sure there's a rock in every shoe because like these are the only shoes I've ever worn. So like, there's no guarantee that any other shoe is better. And other people are like, is there a rock in your shoe? Like that doesn't sound right. Like, no, it's pretty sure it's fine actually. Like it's just the rock in my shoe. And then you take the rock out one day and you're like, why the fuck have I been living for so long with a rock in my shoe? It seems so obvious now. But it really is. It just doesn't. I mean, that's why it takes people years to kind of figure it out because it doesn't feel that obvious at the
and
time.
and then the thing is that you also sorry another question that I had earlier, or I was thinking about earlier, was you were talking about the I guess you mentioned like the nepotism, like one like going into art, or like what happens like once you graduating.
Yeah.
But I was just curious, like are like you're from like a working class family or
No, I'm from a. I mean, the British people have a kind of an obsession with class, and no one wants to say they are anything other than working class. Like people almost would aspire to be at least spiritually working class. My family are not working class; they are upper middle class. Like I was well off as a kid. I was privately educated, and then obviously going to Cambridge kind of doubles down on that privilege. Uh, so yeah, I'm very privileged, which means all the kind of stand up stuff and all the trans stuff is made really so much easier. Because like if you come out, I think like if you're born in I don't know, well let's not pick a specific place. Let's not make enemies. But if you're born somewhere where your parents are, you're less likely to have two parents in the home. I had my mum. My mum was a stay-at-home mum because she could afford to be. Uh, so I always had someone in the house. My dad retired when I was 11
no way.
because business. I don't know.
Fair.
Business went good, and he's retired. Retired just before the financial crash, which perfect timing.
No way.
Done really well. Like the company that he was part of got sold, and he got a big payday, and then retired. And then the value of the company about a month later was
Oh my
through
god.
the floor. Very funny, in my opinion. But very, fortunate for me, obviously. So like I had, for my entire kind of teenage years, I had two parents in the home, very liberal, left wing, but also like just like money was never like a thing that we had to worry about as a family. They raised me well. I think that like I am worried about money in a healthy way. Like it's not like they're just funding my lifestyle. Uh, but yeah, I'm upper middle class, and my life is much easier as a result.
That's a very you made some very good points, like very interesting points, where you were like, just the fact like whatever you come from is still about the education that you're getting. I think the thing that you were talking about, like being, and I think it's a very good thing about like the being financially aware, and to make sure that you're doing, again, you're still like doing things sustainably
Yeah.
for yourself. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I was just curious.
Trying to, I'm doing my best.
I genuinely, because you're talking about the 2008, like the financial crush. I remember, I don't know why I'd like air quotation mark, because there was a financial crush, but
New
yeah,
conspiracy theory.
yeah, here comes the conspiracy theory
Never
about,
happened.
no, but the thing is that because I was in Romania at the time, and also like when I grew up, although I struggled when I came here, but up to like 17, I was also from a very like privileged family, and I had, we were very good at home. But the thing is that in Romania, it felt like the financial crash didn't happen in 2008. To us, it's happened somewhere between 2010 and 2012.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it still feels like everything just took a while, because I remember, sorry, because you were saying you were 11 at the time, or 12.
Yeah, I was 11 in 2008.
So
Yeah.
I think I was actually at 10 or 11, actually. I think we're probably the same age, 27.
Yeah.
Yeah, 27. So I remember watching the TV, and then you see all these like people in like America, like crying their eyes out about like the market crashes and everything.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, what is happening? Because like everyone in, like, I remember at least like my dad and like my dad's friends and people that we were around, it was nothing. It was like,
Yeah.
nothing's happened. And then 2 years later, everyone was
Yeah.
fighting for everything.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
quite
it took
interesting.
these dominoes
Yeah.
take a long time. It's like, like Greece. It was like
Oh my God. Yeah, I remember
it
that.
extended to like 2014, 2015.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably. I
Or
mean,
still going, I
yeah,
guess.
we're. I think Romania is
It's still not,
also
they're
still
still
paying
not
the debt.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just takes a while for people. Like in America, I started in 2007 and then was kind of done by 2010. In the UK, it was not done by 2010. Like 2010 is when we voted in the Tories, and then they did a big old austerity. Uh, so yeah, it just kind of I dragged on for different amounts of time for different kind of.
And I just find it fascinating, because everyone, yeah, or like everyone, most people, whenever you think about it, it's the 2008 market crash. Or, but then I'm like, no, it feels like it was different for everyone.
It does feel like it's still going, doesn't it?
I feel
Like, did it ever get better? I don't feel like it did. It felt like it just kept getting worse.
Yeah, I also, and then that's what I was going to say, because like I feel like during the, especially with like having a pandemic going on, and then the like all these uncertainties happening, and then obviously you, but also, how did you come around to, I guess, come out? Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah,
Yeah. How did that then happen? Like, what was, if you don't mind me asking?
sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Uh, I basically I had a dream, right? Pretty weird.
Very
I
Martin
had a
Luther
dream
King.
one night where that's funny. That's I had a dream where I was a woman in the dream, and I just felt this really weird, really nice feeling of like, oh, this is what it feels like to like feel good about yourself in a way that I just never had when I was awake for the like 24 years that had elapsed up until that point. Uh, and it was like an emotion that I'd never felt before, which is a really strange experience because like on the one hand, it's like obviously it's a dream, it's not real. Don't Why would that impact your life? But like the feeling was a real feeling that I woke up and I was like, well, I must be capable of feeling that feeling in real life because I felt it in the dream, and I've never felt it ever before.
No.
So then I was like, okay, don't panic. Let's start trying things out, like, experimenting with like clothes and makeup and stuff. And it was like, oh no, here's that feeling again. Like I was capable of recreating the feeling in
Wow.
real life. And And then in hindsight, there were definitely signs that I really should have taken notice of. Like when I was a teenager, I would spend quite a lot of time imagining what it would be like to be a woman. Turns out most teenage boys don't do that. I thought I was being relatively normal, but I was absolutely not. I would like I would like go to sleep at night when I was like 13, and I would try and like bless you. I would work out or not work out, not, but like I knew it was possible. Like I see some video on YouTube or something with this physicist talking about how like the odds of you waking up tomorrow on Mars are not zero because like the average position, like electrons are just like an average position. So like you're just kind of like a fuzzy mass, but because there's like trillions of particles that make you up, that your average is going to stay basically where it is. But like each
Ah,
individual electron could be kind of anywhere.
yeah, yeah.
So he was like, "There's not a 0% chance that you'll wake up tomorrow on Mars because like your body might the average, obviously it's maybe it's as near zero as is it could possibly get, but not exactly zero." And then I was like, "Well, if that's true, maybe there's a not 0% chance that I could wake up tomorrow as a woman. That'd be cool." And it's like most people don't have these thoughts, or if they did have them, they would interrogate them immediately. They'd be like, "Why am I thinking that? Like, why is that a thing that I'm thinking about often?" I didn't do that. I was just like, "That's a weird thought. I don't think that means anything." And then I would go to sleep. So obviously in hindsight, it's like, well, obviously that was what it was. But at the time, I don't know. I just didn't think about it outside of thinking about it. Do you know what I mean?
But then that's because you were talking about like having the like thinking about um oh what would be like being a woman or anything like that when you were 13. But then you watched this video when you were 13, or did you watch this video like around 2021?
The video when I was 13. So like I was thinking about
What?
wanting to be a woman for
Yeah,
like a decade
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and not really like wondering why I was thinking that. And then the dream happens and it's like, oh no, there's a real like tangible benefit rather than just like pondering what it would be like. Like now I could kind of feel what it would be like
Yeah.
and I could feel that it would be really nice. And so it just kind of all kind of immediately clicked into place and everything that I hadn't really understood, I now understood. It was a real kind of epiphany, which is, very exciting. Uh, but also like very scary to feel like, okay, well, everything I thought I knew was true about myself.
Yeah.
First, I'm going to have to reevaluate, and then I'm going to have to tell everyone, and everyone else in my life is going to also have to, reevaluate what they think they know about me. Yeah, it kind of hit me all at once that like I had suddenly there was going to be this big eruption in my life, but also like how funny,
And
like how hilarious.
and how did you kind of go, I guess, about it to the respect of, okay, well, here is the plan, or like what were you, I guess, thinking about, why or how were you not thinking about, sorry, let me phrase it in a better way. Yeah, what were your thoughts, or like yeah, what was your plan, I guess, like once this is happening, this is what I'm gonna do next, or because you were talking about how you started is it like experimenting, if I don't say the right word,
No, that's
please
the right
correct me.
word. Yeah,
But you with like makeup and clothing, right?
yeah,
But then what about like the next steps, or like how did you kind of go through your head and like, okay, well, this is who I am, or like this is who I, yeah, this is who I always was, or what
yeah,
I feel like I myself as. Now, how do I guess, like put the house in order?
yeah.
Quotation marks.
I mean, I don't know if I ever felt like I had a plan. Uh, I think the first thing was checking with myself that I was kind of right about it. And I think that took maybe 48 hours from waking up from this dream of like Googling
Huh.
and like setting myself little kind of challenges where it's like, can you think about, you know, having a different shaped body without like getting emotional about it? Like, can you just like think about it without? And I couldn't. So I was like, okay, well, listen, this definitely means something I'm going to have to. So honestly, I felt pretty sure quite soon. And then I was like, this is insane. Like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to justify upending my entire life to my family and friends and girlfriend without like, you know, going through all the proper steps, right? So I was like, okay, well, first I did a lot of therapy because you kind of have to, and also I felt like I needed it to kind of get my own head straight.
Ooh.
I did a lot of research to kind of figure out how transition actually works, what you need to do, and then I just basically made a list of all the people that I had to come out to, and just kind of knocked them off one by one. You know, started that social transition. You know, picking a different name, ask people to call you a different name, trying to kind of trying to find a way of presenting it to like your parents or grandparents who maybe don't understand or are more kind of worried than your friends. Just finding a way of telling them it's like it's going to be okay. Like, I'm fine. I'm actually better now than I was before, so don't worry. Um, yeah, there's a lot of admin. Really, it's just like sorting through all the admin, uh, and and yeah, the actual kind of self realization bit was kind of the simplest, easiest, quickest part.
Wow.
And then it was just like dealing with the fallout that took. It's ongoing, I guess. You know, like years of like other people getting used to it. You know.
I personally I feel like ultimately it's about you, and it sounds, yeah, from everything that you were saying, it sounds like you said, a lot of admin, a lot of
So much admin.
I to an extent it almost feels like it's like such a, again, it's a huge thing, for you, but yet it almost feels like, oh, you have to, that's why like, my curiosity was like how much of it was, oh, I have to worry about other people, like I have to worry about all these other things that are not necessarily my feelings or like my emotions
Yeah.
as a part of the whole process, and it just that adds up to, yeah, it sounds like the most work besides of the thing, when you said about the therapy thing, right?
Yeah.
Like not therapy thing, but like doing therapy, is that something that you were doing for a different reason, or like was it the first time you had to, like, you've
Yeah.
seen a therapy? Was it first time? Okay.
Yeah. I had never had any therapy before. Because I've, generally been like a pretty happy person. Uh, just never felt the need. Um, but then when I came out and I was having to kind of like all of my interpersonal relationships were kind of, well, not necessarily crumbling, but like changing very rapidly.
Yeah.
It felt like a lot to go through, and also just transness as a thing is something that, like, if you want to uh, get any surgeries later down the line, or for a lot of things that you might need, hormones, that kind of thing, it's very useful to have a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. And you can't really get one of those without having done some kind of therapy.
I see.
Just talking to someone about your
Is it a
feelings.
different type? Like, what, if you don't mind me asking, what's the name of the therapy that you were doing?
Just therapy.
It's like CBT, I
It
guess.
wasn't.
Or?
I don't. I'm sure there is an answer to that
Ah,
question, but
okay,
I
okay.
don't know.
No, it was more like a curiosity. I was just
Sure.
wondering, yeah, like what kind, like whether it was, yeah, because again, like I did CBT and then I had to do DBT, like that dialectical behavioral therapy. It's something that I do now because of my borderline personality disorder.
Right.
But that's why I was just curious whether it's like a particular type of. Well, okay, just like speaking therapy, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
fair.
sure. I mean, there's kind of two parts to it. So one was like there's just a therapist that I saw like every week for like a year, and the other is going to like a psychiatrist and getting the diagnosis. So where they ask you like a specific set of questions, and based on your answers, they decide whether or not you kind of qualify as trans, basically. And one of those was very helpful. The speaking therapy was very helpful. Talking to the psychiatrist was not particularly helpful. Slightly bizarre experience because, like, you know what answers they want to hear
Yeah.
if they're going to diagnose you one way or the other. So you just say the answers.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really think about it. It's just like it's like filling out a form. So that didn't feel very therapeutic. I don't know if it was supposed to. But yeah, I think so. Like, yeah, I had to go through all this stuff. The sort of personal internal stuff I was finding really fun and enjoyable because it was like I get to explore all these things that I didn't even know were kind of out there, and then everyone else in my life, as you say, like they're having to go through this whole thing that they're not very excited about. Like they're not, they don't gain much by me coming out. Like they thought I was a perfectly happy, nothing wrong with my life, little boy. And then suddenly that gets challenged, and that's a lot, I think, for people to deal with. So yeah, it's like on the one hand, I was having a lovely time on my own in my own head, but like everything around me was like immediately quite a lot more difficult. But like that, both of those things, like both like the self discovery and having to come out as a woman overnight, both of those things were really funny and provided a lot of material. And I just like I knew very early on that like this is gonna be great. Like, this is gonna be great material.
This is amazing because I was gonna ask about how you managed to go like into gigging 3 weeks later, because this is to me just like phenomenal. Because and again, for reference, it's just the fact that when I can like talk about like my parents now easily, but it took me about a year
Right.
of having to, although again, bear in mind, like my mom sadly, like she passed away about 3 years ago. My dad is almost 8 years now. But again, I like after a year and a half in comedy, every time I was bringing it up on stage, I just couldn't get the audience to not feel bad for me. So at one point I was like, okay, I'm just gonna scrap this. I can't, I can't almost use this material because I feel like I don't want like the audience to, like, take that like pity on me or worry about me.
Yeah.
While it just sounds amazing for you to have almost like, the resilience or the power to go like, hey, again, like to deal with it in like such a short matter and make it funny.
Yeah. Well, I just kind of knew I could see it for what it was. It felt like,
Oh,
I feel, it wasn't a tragedy, first of all.
of course, no, but
So like there was no, I didn't really feel like there was a worry of people necessarily feeling pity for me. Although maybe they did, or maybe they would if I presented it in a different way. Even if I was having a good time, like most people would not be super excited to find out that their relative has come out. Like there's an aspect of trauma there, I guess. But like the things that were happening to me, like coming out to my mum or my grandparents or my girlfriend, it's like there was just gold in those conversations that I could hear it as soon as they as soon as they happened. Like it was just such an easy thing to write about. Just like kind of zoomed out, being able to kind of just pick out the comedy moments. I just found really easy. And also just one day just turning around, just like deciding to live your life as the opposite sex. It's like that's gonna put you in some funny situations. Like it's not gonna go well sometimes. But in a hopefully a non-dangerous way, and therefore it's gonna be funny. I think also like I think there's something about coming out or being trans where you kind of have to zoom out from your own like specific emotions in order to figure out who you are, in order to like understand what it is to be trans. You like you have to travel so far in your own head that you kind of have to have this bigger perspective on what you are like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it was really easy almost to be like like it felt like I was almost a third party witnessing it happening, which was an odd experience. Uh, but it made it really easy to to feel kind of free and able to find the funny stuff in it. I don't know. It just like the jokes just kept coming. Like they just like I'll be talking to like other sort of comedy friends, and someone would be like, do you want maybe we could meet up again in a week or so. We could get a brunch or something. And I was like, brunch? Do I have to do that now? It's just like it's a funny thing to go through. The jokes just every day there were more jokes. They have since kind of dried up because like I'm just having fewer kind of new experiences. So I'm writing about all sorts these days. But like I knew immediately as soon as these things happened. I was like, well, this is already really funny. Like it
Yeah.
takes so little work. So yeah, I did a gig. Maybe you've also done it. It's in the Cavendish Arms in Stockwell. It's like
I'm I was meant I think no, I haven't done
it's
it.
like a new material or
Yeah.
new act
Yeah.
night. I think it's a bringer. And I did it just before I came out as kind of like my old self because that was the only self I had at the time. And it went fine. Like I was trying some new stuff. It wasn't very good. It didn't go great. And then I came out, and then I came back. My first gig back was the same gig, but like a month later. So it was a really kind of stark, like before and after this like massive life event, and I was just much funnier. Like I was just much better. I was much more kind of like comfortable. Weirdly, even though I was being so much more kind of vulnerable, like I felt more comfortable on stage. And it's like as soon as like whenever when that happens, like you know that you're on the right track. Like it's this most people, if they're dressed up as the opposite sex, I mean, most people are going on stage stressful enough as it is, but to also then dress up as the opposite sex and go on stage and tell very personal jokes, most people would find that genuinely soul crushing. But I really enjoyed it. I had a lovely time. I felt like it just felt like kind of where I was meant to be and what I was meant to be doing. And then I've just kind of kept doing it. Like I don't know if it's more complicated than that. It's just, you know, it's like with finding comedy in the first place. It's like in hindsight, it just feels so obvious that this would be the thing that I do, and here we are.
Well, fair, because again, I also need to make a correction to something I was saying earlier about. So the reason I was asking wasn't necessarily to obviously to compare, like saying like a drama, like as a dramatic moment. I was thinking in the respect of what's the word? I was thinking in the respect of something that okay is something new, something fresh that you almost like have to first deal with and then to put it in writing in such a way that you can bring the emotion that you're expecting from, again, say a joke, you're expecting laughter. That to me is just like mind blowing because again, it's something that again, like at the first, I'd have to, take. Again, I can only imagine. I would have probably need way more time, to kind of go like, oh, okay, so okay, now I'm understand. Or like now I feel like I processed everything perfectly
And now
here.
you're ready to kind of present
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that was
I
it.
think. Yeah, I mean, I think most trans people, I think, would take a similar approach. I don't know. I just felt like I didn't need to.
But
I
then,
didn't need to wait because the jokes were already there, and I'm so excited to tell these jokes. I think they're so funny.
but you see, this is the amazing thing as well with everything that you were saying about how, it's you. What I was like, oh, I'm again like I'm dying to say this. Like this is so cool. I think like the bit about how you were chatting with like other comedy friends or like friends, and you were like, oh, maybe we'll get like brunch next week, or and you're like, is this it's like what we do now.
Yeah,
That on its own, I can imagine it, and it's amazing.
yeah,
Because I agree, it's like one of those things where, and I can imagine that. Yeah, it's hilarious.
yeah,
No, I can imagine it, and I can imagine that moment where you're like, that's I don't know, weird, funny. Or I was gonna say awkward, but I don't think it's awkward. It's just weird, or like it's new.
yeah. Yeah.
and
It's. I mean, yeah. That's what coming out was. It was just a lot of new
new
stuff
stuff.
all the time, and yeah, it was. I mean, I think for a lot of people it's very traumatic, but I had a pretty good time. I was
Well,
having fun.
well, you see now
I think
you.
because also like as a comedian, like you play with these things.
Yeah,
You're like,
absolutely.
well, well, this would happen, wouldn't it? Or like when I first started taking hormones, and like at what point did my nipples become illegal? Do you know what I mean? Like, but these are things that you don't get to experience if you're not trans. They're things that would never occur to you. But as soon as you think them, you're like, well, that's obviously just hilarious. Like, that's so
Oh my
funny.
god. Also, then can I ask you? I mean, I'll ask you, and then if you feel like it was a pertinent question, please answer. If not, don't worry.
Sure.
But I was just curious about the hormone process because my understanding is that it's quite difficult with like the way your body adjusts to it. So I imagine even like there must be like a again like a mental and physical tool that this takes. What was it like for you? Like yeah, like what was like in your experience, and also did it affect your I guess creativity or comedy writing or anything like that at all?
I thought I was worried about that. I haven't really noticed that
Oh.
in any way. There are certainly plenty of changes,
Mm-hmm.
physical and to some extent mental, um, but they're not. That I haven't turned into different. I feel like in my brain I'm the same person as I was before I started taking the hormones. So like my body looks different in a way that I like. Um, I'm quite a lot more emotional now than I was. Like I find it much easier to cry. Um, so interestingly, I for a while I did this sort of group. It wasn't group therapy. It was just like
Meetings?
just like a yeah, like a just
Mm.
like a meetup group, just on Zoom, uh, for all kinds of trans people, just meet and just talk about things. And there was this trans man who ran the group, so born female, and the discussion that week was about hormones. And he said, well, someone said in the group, they were like I've come out as a woman. I'm taking these hormones, and I'm crying like all the time. But I don't feel like I just feel emotions so much more deeply, like positive and negative emotion. I just feel them like so much more intensely. So like in a way that's great, like that's what it means to be alive. But like when things are sad, like they're so sad, and I'm crying, and I like is this it makes me wonder if this is all like the right thing to do and all this stuff. And this trans man who he transitioned maybe 30 years ago, and just looking at him, you would never, ever, ever guess that he were not, born a strong masculine man. And he said that when he started taking testosterone, like almost immediately, he hasn't been able to cry since, because like that's apparently what tears, or not tears, but like you know, feeling those emotions, like
No way.
it's so closely related to. It's much more about the hormones than I think we might assume. So he was like, "Well, that's okay. You're just going to have to cry for the both of us. Like it's okay, because I'm on the other side of the coin, and I feel like I've maybe kind of lost something that you've gained, but like you look at me and you wish you could be more stoic or whatever." And it's like, yeah, they take pretty significant effect in some
Hmm.
aspects of your life. Um, but I found it really kind of heartening to hear this guy be like, I'm literally heading the opposite direction,
Yeah.
and I struggle with those effects, but like you know just looking at him, listening to him, it's like so obviously the person he was meant to be.
Yeah.
Um, so that was very helpful to hear, sort of just immediately in advance of starting the hormones, and then quite soon after starting, just to think like, okay, well, there may be some things that I don't quite I don't love immediately, um, but like it's very important to just see the big picture and understand kind of where you're headed. Um, so yeah, I mean, all told, with taking hormones, I've had a pretty feels like a pretty chill experience. I've taken them for like 2 years. Body's changed quite a lot. It doesn't change some things, like your voice doesn't change if you take estrogen. If you take testosterone, it does. It does drop your voice, but it doesn't work the other way around.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean, I feel much more comfortable in my body now. Like just looking at it, I'm like, oh, that's a good body.
Nice.
That's a nice body. I didn't think that before, even a little bit. So that's nice. Weirdly, it's slightly for me, slightly some people to kind of a bigger extent, it changes your sexuality a little bit. So like a lot of people start taking hormones. So if you're a trans woman,
Yeah.
and you're attracted to women,
Yeah.
and you think you're still just going to be attracted to women, you start taking estrogen, and suddenly you actually are also attracted to men. I say suddenly, but like it's sort of like it can shift over time. And I don't know if there's any kind of consensus about whether that's because you are becoming more of you're more comfortable in yourself, and then you're able to kind of relate to men in a different way to the way you were able to relate to them before. Like if you start thinking of yourself as an attractive woman, then suddenly you think that men might see you as an attractive woman, and then that appeals to you in a way that like you couldn't have really imagined before you transition, that kind of thing. Or whether it is literally the hormones kind of changing your preferences. I don't know. But I've had a bit of that, so that's been weird and exciting. Yeah, I mean, it does kind of make you it makes you a new person to some extent, but I still feel in my head like the same person that I've been throughout. I've just changed my own understanding of who that person is. If that makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it feels appropriately deep
And
for this conversation.
no, but it's this conversation can be whatever it is, and this is amazing. You know, I genuinely again like the things that you're saying. I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. And I think the one you were talking about, like, yeah, it being essentially the same person, but you just again you've learned a lot about yourself. You know, and I think that's to an extent everyone's journey. Like I think like that's probably like a healthy journey for everyone, where you've got to understand yourself better, and you got to see where you stand, I guess, in whichever way that may be. So
Yeah.
I was going to ask you now, because I'm aware that we are nearing the end. I was very curious about the last maybe one thing and a half.
Okay.
So, you were talking about earlier on like how you're like almost, and again I quote, running out of like firsts. And you were saying about like the material drying out, but I feel like this whole bit about like like I guess understanding or your sexuality. I think that there's a lot to go there. However, the question was, what was it like then? Like when you did comedy before, right? Like what was the kind of things that you were talking about, and then now after, like, do you see yourself going back to making those, I guess, same reflections or same type of comedy that you were doing before, plus your like journey of coming out?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, yeah. Which hopefully will not result in a drop in quality. But yeah, no, I think, I mean, I was certainly sort of like my onstage persona before I came out was quite a lot more kind of alternative and like off the wall and uh, combative. Like I would love a silence, like just looking at the audience and waiting for them to like. I kind of enjoyed playing with that kind of thing, and I still enjoy that. But I feel like I always felt like I was. I mean, I guess this is what comedy is, but like I felt like I was trying to be the kind of person that that they would enjoy. And I didn't always do a very good job at that, but like that's kind of what I was aiming for. Whereas now it feels much more like the baseline persona is one that I am much more comfortable with, and I am maybe slightly less willing to compromise based on what I think an audience might like. Like I haven't created this thing with the intention of making people laugh. whereas that was very much what I felt like I was doing before. Like I'm just coming on stage as close to a version of myself as I can be, and just telling good jokes. As the material has kind of changed, like the things that are happening in my life are changing and maybe becoming, I guess, more relatable. You know, like I'm having more everyday experiences that everyone's having. As you say, like still inflected by being trans, like that still kind of impacts how a lot of things go. But yeah, I think to some extent, like the kind of material I would do before, like I had a long bit about like Woolworths, you know, Woolworths,
Woolworth.
like it was like a supermarket chain in the UK. It went bust in like 2006. So why would you know what Woolworths is? To be fair, like you weren't here. I had a long bit about that, about how I was in the car and I saw this van that said Woolworths, the home of family values, and I had this whole thing about how ridiculous it was that like a supermarket chain, I think they're the home of family values, like what like motherhood, fatherhood, like family values, and I had this like a 5 minute monologue about it. They didn't have any jokes in it about how angry I was, and then I looked again. Actually, the sign said was the home of family value, and I was like, oh, and it's like, so like me doing that now as myself, I don't think would work, because like the point of it was that I was this weird guy
Yeah.
who was like obsessing over this thing that obviously didn't matter. Whereas now, if I'm just trying to be a normal person to some extent, it wouldn't make sense for me to have this like strange tangent that lasts 5 minutes and then eventually comes back to a single. Not it's not even a joke. It's just like, and then I was an idiot. So yeah, to some extent, I think I'm kind of slightly reverting back to at least like that type of material, but like I think the way that I do it is very different now, and will continue to be different to how I kind of was.
I can't talk for obviously everyone, but I think for one, I would love to see you.
Do the Woolworths bit.
Yeah, because it sounds amazing. I love this again because I think it's so relatable to many extents. Because I think I read, and I think it's something that actually pretty much anyone who reads, you know, even like the newspapers or the headlines, you know, and you're like, oh, this is what this says, and then you're, you know, reminiscing. No, you're basically you're wasting energy over something, and then to actually go, oh,
I'm wrong.
I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've misread this.
No, listen, it was a funny bit. I enjoyed the bit. I also did a bit where I am conscious of time, but like I did a bit where I did a free show at the Edinburgh Fringe, and it was the bucket at the end.
Yeah.
And every comedian has like a bucket speech that you'll do. You'll be like, you know, this, you know, it's free to get in, but it costs £10 to get out, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you have all these lines. But what I would do is I would hold the bucket in my hand, and I would say, I need this. And because I was in quite a small venue, I would say, we're in quite a small venue, there's not that many of you in. We do have time for me to look each of you in the eye while I hold this bucket.
This bucket.
And then I would just go around the room just looking at people and not saying anything. Which I thought was hilarious. Like in my head, I was laughing way harder in my head than any audience member ever was. But I think like that sort of bit I still really enjoy. I feel like I would have to do it in a different. Obviously, I can't do that exact thing, but like you know, I would have to do it in a different way. Like it's just the person that I am is so different, and I enjoy being this person so much more that I don't want to, you know, don't want to go back. But those kind of things where I play with the audience, I still really enjoy, and I'll continue to do, but maybe not in quite so odd and strange a fashion.
It sounds good. Though.
Well, I mean, listen, we'll see. I don't really know. Like, I'll let you know in 5 years.
Yeah, and I would love to see. Well, hopefully I'll be going to Edinburgh soon too. Otherwise, I'd love to see your if you do any like VIPs in London, or but in the end, that actually leads to the last question, which is, please let anyone listening to this know where to find your either your work or dates for future shows or anything. Basically, where are you like most what's the word, active,
Sure.
social media wise?
On all social media, I am D_Allum. Uh, Hopefully, it's easy to spell those things because they're written on whatever podcast format that you're listening to this on. D_Allum. And on all my social media, there's a link to my link tree where you can see all dates for things, and I'll post updates and stories and things. So if you ever want to check me out, then that's where to find all the info that you'll need. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, I guess, if anyone's still doing that. TikTok, you know the ones.
No way, TikTok as well.
Yeah,
Nice. How's that going?
yeah. It's going all right.
I
It's hard.
yeah.
It's really just a hellscape out there.
Yeah.
But I'm on there.
Nice.
I'm plugging away.
Well, that's good. And look, I really enjoyed chatting to you, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
And
This has been really fun.
thank you. I appreciate you saying that. It's been amazing. I think if we were to record this, I wish people would have seen how much I was like jaw dropping, throughout.
Yeah,
because
you
I was
were
like,
you were enthralled.
I
I hope
loved.
the listeners were also enthralled.
Yes, I hope so. But it was awesome. So thank you so much. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you. So, what do you think? Do you like it? I hope you did, because I enjoyed doing it. And check out her work, because again, the show that I went to, which was one of maybe, I want to say maybe the first preview, but I might be wrong. It was very good. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, if you're London based, or if you're I guess Scotland based, or you're going to Edinburgh, I think she's going to be there this year. And look, all I'm saying is check out the work, because it was good. And again, the chat was lovely, and I had such a great time. And yeah, very grateful. And I hope you enjoyed the episode. And I hope to. Well, I hope you will hear from me at the end of the week. So it's a little Chrismukkah present that I have, and it's going to be a very good episode on Friday, coming with a Nova Survivor. But I'll tell you more at the time, and you'll see more then. But yeah, it's a good episode. It's a very, very good episode, and that's it for now. So from me, Pickle and Sarma, bye, and stay skillful, and look after yourselves, and Merry Christmas, and Happy Hanukkah, and just have a happy week, and a happy 2025. Bye.